This is their best hunt ever. They snagged a huge 200-pound alligator and savored some tasty roasted meat. They used alligator fat to make soap, turning their survival skills into a vacation-like experience. On the 24th day, Jeff's group is up early gathering firewood. Wood is crucial for staying warm. Perhaps due to the cold, they haven't spotted an alligator in 4 days. They still check the alligator traps daily and catch catfish to eat. The crocodile bait failed again, and Stephen found out that there was a sea carp rat nearby, and this guy got the nut bag to carry it out. Jeff grabbed a stick and moved to corner the nutria. They intended to kill it with the stick, but would it be that easy on the water? As they got closer, the nutria quickly escaped. It was their first time seeing one, and it was enormous. Catching it for soup would be ideal. Jeff decided to set traps here to catch the sea otter rat. Its appearance was a good sign. At the very least, they now knew there was another type of prey to eat. They quickly began cutting sticks to set up marsh rat traps.
This sea rat is amazing. It gave me an immunity to viruses in my stomach. It's the same kind of animal. If there's one thing I want to kill here, it's this.
This sea rat messed with Jeff's nuts, and he vowed to get even. The day before, Mark's group had also gotten their payback. And they had a barbecue, and this time it was Jeff's turn, and they laid a net here, vowing to catch the sea rat, and he will break it into pieces. Catching a river rat doesn't need that many traps. They must be aiming to wipe out the whole family. Meanwhile, at Gary's group, their team lost Amber, and even Max looks exhausted. They went out early to check the alligator traps, but without Amber fishing daily, now they have to fend for themselves. When they checked the traps, they found them empty. They aren't great hunters, so fishing is their best bet for protein. Gary is underwater checking the fishing gear. He has set up many fishing rods here. I just wonder why he has to stand in the water to fish, while Max is resetting the alligator traps. Hoping to snag another alligator, Gary wades in to adjust the fishing lines, but comes up empty. They haven't spotted an alligator here in a week. They're running low on food. 2 eagles circle above, and Gary quips that the birds are eyeing too soon to be starving people. Meanwhile, Matt's group recently snagged some spicy snacks and savored roasted meat with a divorce certificate. They're currently the best off. They have the biggest group and plan to check the alligator traps today. It's been ages since they last had alligator meat. During winter, spotting an alligator is rare, let alone catching one. They head over to check the traps. They see the bait untouched. The first trap is empty, so they head to the second one. Before they even get close, Matt notices something. Ryan gets excited too. Matt slowly pulls the rope. They actually caught an alligator. This is incredibly lucky. They quickly go back to tell Riley the news. They caught a large alligator. Before handling it, they rub potash on their faces, believing it grants strength and luck. This is the warrior's paint before battle. Alright, I can't keep this up. It's actually just a simple ritual. They spot the alligator hooked on the shore, and it's twice as big as their last catch. They strategize on how to haul it in. Ryan decides to loop its mouth, because when the alligator struggles, its head moves a lot. Using the loop to hold its head will stabilize it. Then Matt can use a bow and arrow to kill it. They drag the massive alligator to the shore as it thrashes in the water. Thankfully, the paracord holds strong. No matter how hard it fights, the alligator can't break free from the rope.
Watch out!
As they reel the alligator in, Matt seizes its tail. It thrashes in a death roll, and they struggle to keep it steady. Just as they try to loop it, it breaks free with another death roll. Finally, they slowly turn its head and loop its mouth. Once the alligator is stabilized, they use a bow and arrow to injure it, eventually subduing it. This alligator is really huge. This alligator seems larger than the one Jeff's group caught and should last them until day 60. It takes 3 people to lift it. This alligator is enormous. They hauled the 200-pound beast back, buzzing with excitement the entire way. They've caught the crocodile for the second time, and they're sure they're going to be more experienced with the crocodile this time, and they're hanging it from a tree. It's really too big to look like this, and it's big enough for a person to eat for more than 10 days to cut off the flesh off the crocodile's tail. These little strips of meat would be made into jerky, and Ryan would hang the jerky and smoke it on the roof of the shelter. Wouldn't they use the bones to make a pon? If the Chinese were trying to survive, they would definitely use this crocodile meat to the extreme, and they would have cut some crocodile meat and grilled it for lunch. He also cut off a large piece of crocodile liver and skewered it on a wooden stick to roast it. Today is destined to be another holiday life of eating barbecue. Crocodile liver has been roasted. It's rich in a variety of elements that the body needs, and it smells very good. They work daily and need to replenish nutrients. Alligator liver is their go-to supplement. A piece of alligator liver with a chunk of fat, this is practically 5-star dining. It tastes absolutely amazing. Day 25 has arrived. Snider feels very lonely here. Early in the morning, he goes to check the fishing gear. He mentioned setting up an alligator trap and 5 fishing devices. Using these fish traps to catch an alligator. What was he thinking? Nearby, he spotted a bullfrog. He grabbed a stick and went after it, swinging wildly but missing every time. He even cursed the bullfrog, calling it names. But it wasn't the frog's fault, it had given him plenty of chances. Back at the shelter, he decided to craft some tools to catch the bullfrog, which usually feeds at night. If he succeeded, they could have a decent meal. He crafted a torch, intending to hunt bullfrogs tonight. Their eyes reflect light, and Snider plans to use the torchlight. Next, he needs to make a spear, which will be his weapon for catching bullfrogs. He made a 4-pronged spear to boost his chances of catching a bullfrog. Check out his stance. The dry noodles I was holding dropped in shock. He promised to get me a new pack. Meanwhile, at Jeff's group, Steven went to check the 11 traps he set for the water rats, aiming to catch the entire family. He arrived and heard a sea rat. Looking closer, he saw it floating on the water curtain, which made Steven furious. Seeing it twice in the same place, he swore that he would have the sea rat cut into pieces, and Jeff was sorting out the firewood at the shelter. He spotted a small lizard. Although Jeff didn't think much of its meat, it could be used as bait. Soon, he also caught a frog nearby. Frog legs can also be used as bait. Jeff planned to use them for fishing. He crafted a double hook fishing rig. One hook holds a frog, the other a lizard. He hopes this will snag a big catfish. Gary's group, on the other hand, they go out every day looking for food. They could just fish at home, but they insist on going out and making it hard on themselves. They keep exploring their surroundings, hoping to get lucky. Max found some animal droppings here. Holding it in his hand, he examined it closely. It looked fresh, almost like chocolate. They decided to catch this prey. They set up a snare trap. While doing so, Gary unexpectedly found a beehive in a tree. They got excited immediately, but the tree was too tall and big.
Getting stung on the face by bees would be awful, but I'm really keen on the honey.
Max claims he's allergic to honey, though he hasn't tried it. He mainly wants Gary to handle the risky part. Once Gary got the honey, they could both enjoy it. Gary was eager to taste the honey, as it was their only discovered food source. Gary plans to fell the tree. As the sun sets, Snider's group begins their task. He lights a torch and prepares to catch bullfrogs. This old sea dog fears nothing, roaming the jungle at night with a torch, but torches burn out quickly. Can you really catch a frog like that?
There you are! There you are!
I just had one jump right past my feet. Almost had him.
He finally caught a bullfrog, and it must weigh a pound. That's enough for a midnight snack. Cooking it into a spicy bullfrog dish should be delicious. But really, just one? Are you worried the police will come after you if you catch more? Will you really starve if you wait a bit longer? It's day 26, and Matt's group is already on their second round of vacation life. Their shelter was full of crocodile barbecue, and they were happy to see it, and they had a very good plan for crocodile meat this time. No longer being reckless like before, they intended to use this alligator to sustain them for the coming days. Even breakfast could be this lavish. If Snider next door saw this, he'd probably keel over. They didn't waste the alligator head this time either. The meat on top was all dug up and eaten by them, and the crocodile like kebab Ryan ate it crunchy too, and now has so much food, as long as it doesn't go to waste. Jeff's group is sure to last until day 60. Food and drink are no longer a concern. Their main task now is collecting wood each day. Jeff set a fishing trap yesterday, eager to catch fish to diversify their meals. Alligator meat every day gets boring. When Jeff checked the fishing setup at the shore, he felt something odd as he pulled the line. He slowly reeled it in and, sure enough, he had caught another catfish. To his surprise, the hook had snagged 2 fish. He started shouting excitedly, making quite a I was tempted to shove a bag of chips in his mouth. We used 2 hooks and caught a big catfish and an alligator fin. Today is clearly Jeff's day. He eagerly bagged the fish while Steven kept working. Unaware of Jeff's situation, the catfish had eaten frog legs, and the alligator gar had eaten a small lizard. To Jeff's surprise, he had caught a fish that looked prehistoric. The alligator gar's skin was tough, but the meat was tender. He's excited for today's grilled fish feast. After days of alligator meat, fresh fish will be a welcome change. They were quite pleased with the meal. A full belly makes for a good night's sleep. Meanwhile, Gary's group seemed to have lost their fishing touch without Amber. Each day they search for food, but their traps come up empty. Today, they aim to cut down trees for honey. The honey's sugar and energy will sustain them for days, but bees can be fierce. Their only defense was their speed. If they ran quickly, the bees wouldn't catch them. Gary cautioned Max to stay alert, because bees are drawn to black things. In the jungle, black bears are their worst enemies due to honey theft, sparking a long-standing feud. And in the eyes of the bees, Max is just like a black bear. I hope he can endure it for the sake of the team. Max is quite anxious now. Gary has begun felling a tree, which will likely take hours to cut down. This wood turns out to be solid, and it's redwood too, perfect for making furniture. While Max is chopping, he noticed bees starting to appear nearby. The bees above seemed to sense it too. Max kept swinging his axe. To get some honey, they chopped down a tree, which took a lot of effort. As the tree slowly fell, the bees stayed calm. Gary, however, did go crazy. Before they even started collecting honey, Gary got stung on the nose. Max was already watching from a distance. Gary was repeatedly stung by the bees, enduring countless stings. This was the same guy who had laughed the loudest earlier. The bees were now extremely agitated. They could use fire to drive them away and collect the honey. To get it, Gary showed no fear. Using 2 pieces of charcoal, he set the beehive on fire. Amidst the bees, he kept chopping down the tree. He got stung quite a bit along the way, but he kept chopping. The honey inside was what Gary wanted. They only got a small taste, but it was delicious. Was it really worth the risk for just a bit of honey? After eating, Gary continued to collect honey. These bees were still too kind. They harvested a few pounds of beehive. Max thought they had pretty much used up the resources here. The honey they got wouldn't last long. It would be hard to make it to day 60. They planned to move out of this area and look for more resources elsewhere.
Meanwhile, Snider
checked the fishing setup, struggling the most. He tugged on the fishing device in the water, but unfortunately, he had no luck. The floating water plants in the area seemed to be interfering with his fishing. He planned to build a fishing platform here, so he could easily fetch water and fish in deeper areas. Although he had plenty of time, he chose to build the platform the next day. Meanwhile, Jeff's group had begun storing meat. Steven went to check the traps. He really wanted to catch a capybara and had set up many snares. But he found nothing. One line was dragged away. He followed it and saw it had been bitten off. This really surprised him. The marks suggested a large creature. Steven thought they might have caught a capybara, but a crocodile had stolen it. They realized they needed to be more cautious. On day 27, Gary's group enjoyed honey in their shelter. They were planning their move, even though there was still honey around. The rivers and swamps made it hard to carry too much. They planned to build a raft, dismantling the wood from their shelter to construct it. It didn't take them long. The raft was quickly built, saving them the time of chopping wood. They tied the logs together with rope, and now they are ready to set off. Meanwhile, Matt's group has plenty of food and water. Their shelter is stocked with crocodile meat, and they plan to make soap from the fat. The fat tastes delicious, and they have roasted meat every day, living quite a comfortable life. They boiled a big pot of crocodile oil, poured it into bamboo tubes, and then added charcoal ash to make lye. Charcoal has sodium hydroxide, which helps turn fat into soap, but it's corrosive, so avoid getting it in your eyes. Once the lye was ready, they poured it into the boiled crocodile oil. It smelled quite nice. They poured the oil into the iron pot. Then they kept stirring it. Once it cooled, it would be ready to use. Gary's group was preparing for the move. The raft was done, but they still needed a paddle. As they dried their supplies, they noticed a foolish bird foraging across the bank. Max decided to swim over and snatch its fish. The bird was eating fish on the other side. Before it finished, they quickly swam over. The bird had caught a big fish. These two guys bullied the bird, chased it away, and successfully got the fish. The bird watched them from the water, unable to believe it. It couldn't believe humans had stolen its food. They got a big fish, and Max was proud of it. The bird must have hated them. Soon, the fish was roasted, and Max enjoyed it immensely. This stolen fish feast replenished their energy just in time for the move. They were so stuffed that they decided to rest for a day before leaving, even with half the shelter dismantled. Meanwhile, Matt's group. They were well fed and started enjoying life. Matt and Ryan were making a wooden chair just to find something to do and burn some energy. Gradually, they were moving from the primitive era to a more civilized one. If it were me, I'd make a bed with all this time. Ryan even decided to craft a nameplate for the shelter, chopping wood and sweating heavily, but he didn't worry about food and drink. Sweating more was just a workout for him. Ryan wrote on a stick with charcoal, naming their group. They hung the wood next to the shelter. They had been here for almost a month and had fully adapted to life here. They have the skills to live here indefinitely. The soap they made earlier has now cooled. Riley applied some soap to his hands and kept scrubbing his body. Bathing with soap indeed makes you feel much cleaner. They used their knowledge to improve living conditions here, even making soap from crocodile fat. Night fell. Stephen heard a growl while sleeping. A black bear appeared nearby. He didn't dare make a sound as the bear was right outside the shelter. The bear, nearly the size of their shelter, was terrifying. If Jeff and Stephen could hunt it, it would be quite a spectacle. On the 28th day, they heard bear calls nearby the previous day. Today, they chose to investigate. Jeff assumed it was just a large animal, not a bear. They began searching for tracks around the shelter. Stephen found footprints on the ground, confirming it was a bear last night. It was very close to their shelter. They guessed the smell of crocodile meat attracted the bear. Jeff now realized that processing crocodile meat at the shelter and handling several fish had created a strong odor. He never expected to encounter a black bear here. The bear's footprints were huge, suggesting it might come back for food, but they had no plans to hunt this bear. Well-fed people fear death. They followed the footprints and found bear droppings. Stephen guessed the bear was nearby. If they fought the bear, it would be a dead end for them.
Meanwhile, Snider
had been managing this spot. Today, he aimed to build a fishing dock. The floating plants here were too numerous, hindering his water access and fishing. Though he had been hungry for days, he still found the energy to build a dock. He intended to use wooden stakes next to a fallen tree to keep the floating plants from spreading. The plan was straightforward, but executing it was tough. Doing it solo was even tougher. Meanwhile, Matt's group rationed their food daily, making sure not to waste any meat on the bones. They planned to finish the crocodile before hunting again. As its tail was rich in meat and fat, they put the meat in an iron pot to make soup, eating 2 sections of the tail in one meal. They ate the sliced crocodile meat directly. Snider has cleared a patch of land, and the fallen trees act as a natural dock, provided there are no floating water plants. Fishing should be fairly simple. While standing on the tree to clear the water plants, Snider slipped and fell in, getting drenched. He checked if the tree could support him, but a moment later, he was lying on the ground. When he fell, he accidentally got poked by the tree. It looked pretty painful, and Snider was so mad he cursed at the wood for hours.
I take my F asterisk asterisk king balls F asterisk asterisk KU. You want a war?
You want a war?
I'll kill you.
I'll kill you!
Or it will be.
Or it will be.
Later, the doctor checked on her and said it wasn't serious. She just needed a stitch on the nut bag. If it got infected, she might lose her family. The show crew informed her the stitching needed to be done in a sterile environment. Stitching here carries some risk, but Snider decided to do it, fully aware of the consequences. But she's ready to face it. Being tough, she refuses to seem weak. The show called in 2 female doctors. They stitched up her wound, and she can't get it wet for a while, which will limit her hunting range. At night, Snider sat in the shelter, reflecting on the day's events. It had truly been a thrilling experience. He thanked the wood for sparing his family. It was now the 29th day, and Gary's group woke up early. Today, they begin their move, bringing along all the furs and honey. They chose their route on the map, noting that the area is full of swamps and the terrain is very complex. They decided to use some large trees as landmarks. Once their plan was set, they began their journey. Gary hoped to find a place with more crocodiles, as that would mean more food. It could barely support 2 people, but Gary and Max set off, beginning their relocation adventure. Matt's group has the most meat. If Gary's group accidentally ends up here, would Matt's group accept them? I don't think so. Their meat is just barely enough to last them until day 60. Adding 2 more people, their meat supply is insufficient. They cooked a pot of meat soup, ate the meat, and drank the broth. This meal will surely send you to the bathroom. After eating, Riley felt a bit unwell. Her stomach was churning, and she ran outside to vomit. This is dangerous. If Riley quits because of food issues, the team will be more competitive. With fewer people, there will be more meat, helping them last until day 60. We're already halfway through the competition. If Riley quits now, it would be a real shame.
Over on Snider's side,
he realized the swamp wasn't kind to him and decided to make fur pants to protect his family, something he should have done ages ago. I've been working so hard that my hands are worn out. Despite losing a lot of weight, the waistband still doesn't fit him. He has the biggest but among all the teammates. At last, he made a pair of pants, ensuring his family's safety and lifting his spirits. Meanwhile, Gary's group, they've been drifting for 3 hours, and they're exhausted. They still haven't found their destination. Max saw a crocodile nearby, and they instantly started to worry because the crocodile could easily flip their raft. This area has a lot of crocodiles. Will they be able to find a suitable spot? Stay tuned for the next episode.